Oh, hello everybody. Hopefully you can hear me. I've got a new mic set up. Looks like I've got a couple of guys in here already. Let me know if I'm audible. I'm trying out a new mic setup. That way I. Oh, hey 4K, how's it going? Am I pretty audible? I've got a new lav mic I'm trying out. Okay, cool. Just thanks, Gary. Thanks for chiming in. Yeah, I got the one Sam recommended me. He was using. It's actually a really great little Sony mic. Super cheap, but unfortunately the cable is extra short, so I'm kind of tethered to my PC for the time being. Um, yeah, awesome. You guys could drop in. Yeah, I'm trying to get back to doing these like full on a weekly basis. Um, so I've got a ton of records I've picked up in the past couple weeks. I meant to go through some of them last time, didn't get to any of them. So I since I have so many, I guess I better go ahead and get started, and then kind of can recap for anybody else who comes in. Oh, hi, BitKid. Thanks for coming in. So they're in just rough alphabetical order, and I haven't actually been getting many records too recently, but then just all of a sudden, it's like just same thing with Laserdisc. It's pretty dry locally. You occasionally buy something on eBay, and then all of a sudden, it just goes crazy. Oh, hey, Melinda, thanks for dropping in. Glad to see you. So, starting with the A's for record finds, Sam would like this. This is a nice AHA release of "Stay on These Roads," and it is a promo from Warner Brothers back in the day. Super clean, and it does have the daylights on it. I believe this is the band preferred remix, so that's pretty cool. Um, oh, you haven't missed anything, Melinda. I was just checking out my mic, trying out a new lav mic, and yeah, so if you haven't missed anything, just going through the records I didn't get to do last time. If I don't do it now, it's just going to keep piling up. Keeping on with the A's, again, this was a super cheap LP in perfect shape, still in the shrink wrap, and the sound quality of these guys' releases are great. So I picked up the Asia Alpha album. So you can see it's still in the shrink wrap, still has the promo sticker and the original price sticker on it. If only records were still under $7 everywhere, but this was literally only $1.99 and looks like it's never been played. And I have their self-titled release that everybody has, and the sound quality on that is great. So if I know something's going to sound good and I'm even remotely interested and it's a record these days that's like under $2 or $3 and the whole vinyl boom, I'm like, okay, I'll try it because I can afford to try records for that cheap. Um, and then I went to the local record convention a couple weeks ago, and there was a really good couple tables with some really nice cheap discs. It's the same place where I went, and I found that amazing deal on the Criterion last year at Marienbad. But there was one table that had a ton of great stuff from the 70s and 80s, and was only charging like $2, $3, $4 tops for all of them, really one at a time. So I picked up the Baby's Head First album, which I have their first album, which is also really good. So this should be pretty fun and perfect shape. And then from that same table, I picked up one I meant to grab for a long while. I just never found a clean one. Let's see, where's the Bad Company Burning Sky album, which, if I'm remembering correctly, this was mastered by Bob Ludwig, and it has a really nice gatefold on it. And you usually find this one. I'm just tried to wait to get a copy that's super clean, and this one is, so that's pretty cool. And of course, the Swan Song logo on the back. This one was a really nice find. This was in one of the local shops, and again, not a band I really commonly see, and a band I've been meaning to get into more because I'm a big Clash nerd. The debut This Is Big Audio Dynamite LP, the US Columbia pressing, and what's nice about this, it's a DJ promo copy, and it's in mint shape. So this is a really cool find, and again, only a couple bucks, and you don't find their stuff very often at all. Told you I had a lot of records, right? This was a nice bin find. It was in the 99-cent bin, and the store was running a sale, so it was even cheaper than that. Nice copy of the greatest hits of Blood, Sweat, and Tears. I've meant to get their first album for a while, never found a clean copy, so this is a nice starter for a lot of the 60s and 70s Columbia LPs, they do sound really good, so you can't really beat them. You try to go for, earlier cuttings of like specific bands and stuff, but they're nice, cheap, and they sound really good. And I demoed this a little bit, and it's really nice for, under $1. Next up is the, let's see, when's this from? Can't remember what year. Oh, yeah, okay, 1981. This is a later Chic album. This is the Take It Off album. And I've been trying to get in more to some of their later albums because there's some good material on, albums like Real People that, only like super diehard Chic fans know about. And I do think they are one of the great underrated bands and, one of the best rhythm sections ever. And then Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards went on to like produce everything in the 80s. So nice find, not too commonly found. And I've managed to get clean copies of all their main albums, so I'm just trying to get the whole run. Just giving you a quick abbreviated for each of these. Now here's another one. It's a common record, but it's one I've tried to find for a long time because I wanted to get a clean one. And this is an album they sold millions of back in the day. And there's no reason why you should have to pay like $10 or $15 for it. It's not a hard to find album, but it's hard to find in good shape. This is, of course, Phil Collins's classic No Jacket Required. And I'm actually a pretty big Phil defender because I like the 80s Genesis period. And I love Peter Gabriel too, but there's some really good songs on here, and there's some goofy songs on here, but sometimes you need that. But what's really great about this is, it's also produced by Hugh Badgham, who produced, Phil's first solo record and the 80s Genesis albums. And the sound he would achieve on all of these is really phenomenal. And this LP is mastered by Bob Ludwig. And if you find an original pressing like this, it shouldn't cost you more than a couple bucks. And the sound quality on here is fantastic. So you can really crank up Sussudio and be like, man, this sounds great. I still have no idea what this is about, but it sounds fantastic. So really happy to find a copy of this that was not marked up to like, 15 bucks or something. And we're still only in the C's. I told you I had a lot of LPs backlogged. Let's see. So next up is another one tried to find for a long time, and then this clean one finally popped up. And one of the local shops. It's a nice copy of Live Cream Volume 2, which is the companion piece to the first Live Cream album from 1970. This is an Atco release. It's later reissued on RSO, like all the other Cream releases. And what's interesting about this is it's actually got a sticker on it saying it's from the Record Club of America. And usually I try to avoid Record Club pressings, but this one is pretty much just a standard Atco one, but they just slapped the sticker on it. So it's a really nice minty LP, and I've wanted to pick a copy of this up for a long time because it's got some really nice live cuts on it. So really nice to go along with the first live one. Now we're finally getting on to D. This is another one from the record show. Not really essential because I've been trying to pick up all the British 12 inches with all the B-sides and extended cuts, but this was a Japanese exclusive EP, I guess you'd call it. The Duran Duran Tiger Disco Mixes EP is what it's listed as, but pretty much this is a Japanese exclusive compilation with some of the 12-inch night mixes of some of their biggest singles at the time. This was, of course, like right in the big heyday of Seven and the Ragged Tiger. So unfortunately it doesn't have the Obi strip, but this was only like just a couple bucks, and it's in mint shape, and again it's a Japanese only import, so not exactly essential if you've been picking up all the British 12 inches, but it was in perfect shape and the price was right, so I was like, okay. The other big Japanese exclusive was the Night Romantics one that used the similar cover to the original self-titled album. So I'd like to pick that up one day just to have both of them. And the other thing about the Duran Japanese vinyl, all of the sound, and the vinyl itself is super quiet. The sound is fantastic. So you can't go wrong with any of their Japanese releases for the early 80s stuff. I mean, the sound quality is off the charts. So really nice. Again, not essential, but pretty cool. Now here's a really nice 12-inch that actually I believe, yeah, this is a British copy because it's on the Charisma label, and it's at the fantastic British 45 speed they would do for all their 12 inches, which make them awesome instead of ours, which are just 33 1/3. This is the I think this is from 83, I want to say. I think this is like a DJ reissue promo or something, but it's Peter Gabriel, and it's track I don't remember, which is off his third album, the Melt album, and then also has Salisbury Hill and Kiss of Life on it. I want to say this is maybe a remix because it's this is a couple years after the third album, and this is just a nice solo release, and it's really cool to find it in a British 12-inch because, as I said before, British 12 inches are almost always at 45 speed, which sound fantastic. And if I ever find any, I try to collect them because I just love them so much. And then I see the American ones, and I'm like, why is this only 33 1/3? Speaking of that, here's another one. This is actually an update copy of one of my favorites I picked up. That's a British 12-inch. This one's in perfect shape, and it was in the singles bin. There's a bin at one of the local shops I frequent that has just all their 12 inches. And oddly, it was marked for only 99 cents. So this is an upgrade copy to my previous one. This is the Human League's Classic. It's, of course, it's listed as 100 on the top there, but it's actually the Don't You Want Me 12-inch. It has the extended dance version on one side, and then the B-side is Seconds, followed with the standard version of Don't You Want Me. And the sound quality on this, again, is fantastic. I really like the extended mix on here. If you've never heard it, give it a look up on YouTube and see if you like it. It's a pretty good one. But just the sound quality alone is really great, and it actually sounds better for the main track than the standard LP because you get 45 RPM grooves on a 12-inch. So really, really nice. And of course, being British, you can usually tell it's a British 12-inch in the rack because you can't really see it, but the covers are really flimsy and they have a nice glossiness on them. The Peter Gabriel one's the same way. So if you're ever flipping through like a big bunch of 12-inch singles, you can usually tell one's going to be a British one or a European one because it's glossy and it's a little more flimsy, but really, really awesome. I referenced this on my last stream, but yeah, I picked up Don Johnson's Heartbeat album because I love this silly title track, and I was like, you know, this is dirt cheap, and it's actually a DJ promo copy. I don't know if you can see there. And, you know, I didn't know this album had a gatefold, but it does. There's the man himself. So I'm just curious to see if the rest of the album is as goofy fun as the title track. Oh, hey, Elvin, how you doing? Thanks for dropping in. Just going through the record finds of the past, well, really probably about the last month or so. Like I said, when it rains, it pours, and then it goes back to being super dry and overpriced LPs. Now, this is, of course, an artist who, you know, whose values on vinyl have skyrocketed since his passing. So it's been very difficult. I was trying to collect some Prince albums before he passed on, and then, of course, just like Bowie and just like anybody else, as soon as that happens, then everybody and their brother starts marking prices up because there's suddenly a new demand. And there is a pretty nice reissue program going on with Prince through Warner Brothers, but I'm still a big original pressings guy, and so I just wanted to basically collect the main run of 80s albums, but I never thought any of the earlier stuff would pop up, and then stumbled across this copy of Prince's self-titled album. Still in the shrink wrap, still has the I Want to Be Your Lover promo sticker on there, and in a nice original pressing in perfect shape. And I actually got this on sale. It was a store sale day, so I got it for like 30% off. So not easy to find a condition like this, especially for the price. So really, really cool. And keeping on the same tack, an even harder album to find, probably the hardest to find of the whole 80s run on vinyl in an original pressing, especially at a, at a low price. I managed to find a copy of Sign of the Times, the classic double album, and just a really, really nice shape. And like I said, it's probably the hardest to get of the main famous 80s albums, simply because this was getting on, later in the decade, and it also came out on CD, so a lot of people had it on CD. 'Cause this was about 87, I think. So that, that's really when people were getting more into CD, and they started printing less vinyl copies. Plus, double albums cost more, double albums are worth more, and a lot of people hung on to their copies of this because I know a lot of people regarded this probably Prince's, finest hour on record. So I just always wanted to pick up a copy of this and, re-listen to it and check out the sound quality. So really, really exciting, and also exciting that it didn't cost me a ridiculous amount. So I'm just surprised somebody parted with this, and that somebody didn't put a big price tag on it. Yeah, told you I had found a lot of records. Um, this one is it's a song I really like. It's from the reunion of Public Image Limited. This is the one drop 12-inch single EP. Because it's got, I say EP, it's got 4 songs on it, but this was from 2012. Yeah, this is when they got back together, and this was the first song they put out before they put out an album. And I've never been like a giant Pill fan, but I've really appreciated stuff that they do, and I've meant to dig into them more. So I figured this would be a nice way to start. And even though this is from 2012, vinyl only stays in print for so long nowadays. So you never know when stuff gets like suddenly super rare or expensive. I remember I was going to pick up the Garbage Reunion album, the vinyl version, because the CD was super loud. This is not their last one, but the one before, Not Your Kind of People. And it was like, $25 or $35 because it was a double album due to length. And then all of a sudden one day I noticed it was out of stock everywhere and not in the shop. And then I suddenly see it on eBay or Discogs for like $75 or $120. I'm like, well, that was sudden. Well, I guess there goes that one. So pretty nice find. And again, should not be as compressed as the CD or digital download version. On to the S's. I picked up a couple gaps in my Springsteen collection. This one is I'm trying to go for just getting the main Springsteen albums in original pressings because again, even though there's some nice reissues out there, I'm an original pressings nerd, and these shouldn't be very hard or very expensive to find, but you'd be surprised with this whole vinyl boom. Even common albums, even in bad shape, are going for 10 or 15 or $20 when they should be like $5. So this is an upgrade copy for me. I think this is a really underrated record. This is the second Springsteen album, Wild Innocent and the E Street Shuffle. And I was never really a huge Springsteen fan, but recently in the past couple of years, I found I really like the early material and a bunch of stuff in between. So I've been meaning to, dig through his back catalog more. And I think this is a really underrated album. But it's in really nice shape, got a great condition cover, and so it's an upgrade to my older ones that were beat up. Oh, hey, Metro, thanks for jumping in. Just going through my vinyl pickups that I've been meaning to go through for a while. And then I keep putting it off or talking too much, and then the box gets bigger and bigger, so I'm just running through them now. Finally picked up a original Darkness on the Edge of Town. Again, from that really great booth in the record show that had great original pressings that they weren't charging a ton for. Again, Darkness, they sold a ton of these back in the 70s, so it shouldn't be an expensive album, but it's most shops will charge you at least 10 or 20 bucks, maybe about 15 for one of these. And so I've just been holding out for a clean one, and a clean one for like $4 is a lot better than 20. So and then also finally picked up a copy of Tunnel of Love. Again, try to get back in focus. Again, not everybody's favorite Springsteen album, but there's some good songs on here. The production is really nice, as is the sound. Because this is following up a little while after Born in the USA, which has a phenomenal sounding LP. So I've been meaning to pick this up for a while. And one more Springsteen, this also from the singles bin at the local record shop. This is the 12-inch Cover Me with a bunch of different versions. It's got some dubs, and then it's got a special 12-inch mix on it. So it's also in pretty nice shape. So I'm pretty surprised this was tagged 99 cents, but I'm not going to complain. I have a special fondness for 12-inch singles, even though I like 45 speed. Um, I don't really have a lot of 45s, a lot of 7 inches, because it's kind of a pain to keep them clean and get them in good shape and not warped, and especially to store and flip through and catalog and everything. So I really like having 12-inch singles because it's easy to file along with the rest of your records, and then especially you know, you have space for more songs and more cover art. And then I love the British 12 inches because they're 45 speed. Occasionally you find an American one that's 45 speed, but it's very rare. This one is another, you know, cheap common album, but I wanted to pick up because I have some of his other albums. This is Billy Squier's Enough Is Enough. And of course, you know, his Don't Say No album is a classic, and I've managed to pick up his other 80s albums. So this was just one to fill in and hear an album I've never actually heard. Should have pretty nice sound quality, as all his other albums sound really, really great. Pretty underrated 80s artist, I'd say, actually. Okay. Well, this one was a really nice find. It's a pretty uncommon promotional 12-inch. This is the I don't exactly know what the specific title of this is, but it's a promo exclusive 12-inch of Who rarities and B-sides. But this was selections from the Who's Missing compilation that came out in 1986. And what's great about this, it was the first time that anybody went out and tracked down master tapes and the best quality tapes and sources for these songs. And the vinyl was mastered by Steve Hoffman, the legendary audio engineer. So this is a special 12-inch with nice liner notes from Pete Townsend himself. This is the same thing that's printed on the Who's Missing jacket. But what's great about this is you get 4 songs, but of course it's on a 12-inch to itself, so you get a bit wider grooves. So, you know, ostensibly the sound may be a bit better, and it's also a very rare item. I've never seen one before. It's got an obscure Discogs listing. It's not like it's worth a whole lot, but since I'm a gigantic Who nerd and I know how they can have so many different sounding releases, I was just like, I don't think I'll ever see another one of these. And the Who's Missing collection is a must-own for Who fans. The sound quality is fantastic. And at that time, a lot of those songs had been stuck as B-sides or UK exclusives or had been not released. And even though they've gone on to later discs and versions and stuff, they haven't sounded as good. So that, and then the Who's Missing comp that they did after that, about a year or two later, is also essential. So really, really nice. Of course, I had to have another Who-related LP. This is a promo 12-inch single for Pete Townsend's "A Friend Is a Friend" from his Iron Man soundtrack. A pretty nice 12-inch. It's got "Friend Is a Friend," and then it's got some extended mixes and some instrumentals from the Iron Man musical that he did. And for those of you who don't know, this is still the same story that later became the Iron Giant. Pete wanted to do a movie version and do it animated, and eventually everything kind of fell apart. And what eventually came to pass was it being kind of reformed into the Iron Giant a long time later. But this was the early 90s, I think, about 91, or no, I'm sorry, 89. So it's an interesting album, but of course it's a bit different from the Iron Giant if you've only seen that. It's based on on the story by Ted Hughes, but it's an interesting thing, and if you're a Pete Townsend nerd like myself, you'll be all over this. Okay, almost done. Just looks like 3 more. All right, managed to pick up a nice cheap copy of Wings at the Speed of Sound. And again, anything Beatles related these days, even if it's Wings, will cost you a pretty penny. So been meaning to listen to more of Wings albums. So a nice find. And again, only like $3 at the record show, so pretty cool. Not anything rare, but hard to find at $3 or less in perfect shape. And also had a copy of the Wings London Town album. Again, nothing rare, but only $3 and in perfect shape, so I'm all over that. And it helps because I've been meaning to dig into more Wings anyway. It's just been the expense of buying used records that's been really killing my musical curiosity. And it's like, well, I can just check things out on YouTube, but it's not the same. And then last but not least, I picked this up kind of as a lark. I'd like to make fun of the big song from this, but it's one of those earworms that you never forget, and it seemed like you could never get away from it for a long while. So I picked up a copy of Steve Winwood's Back in the High Life, simply because it has Higher Love on it. And I love to love-hate that song because it was like everywhere. I think I read once it's like the #1 Muzak song of all time. It's been played more in elevators and grocery stores and gas stations than any other song. So even if you don't know it, as soon as you look it up, you know it because you've heard it somewhere. And I love that they put it in GTA 5 because that just tickled my funny bone. But it's also a DMM direct metal master cut, so it should sound really nice. And for the buck it cost me, I'm like, okay, I have this song I'd love to hate / love that gets stuck in my head for a buck. So that does it for LPs. I know I kind of ran through those, but I meant to show off some of them before, and then I talked too much and ran out of time and ran out of time again. Let's see. Oh, cool. You're gonna hit your record store up. Yeah, you never know. Like every time I'm like, I picked over everything. There's not going to be anything new. And then you go back like a week later, and all of a sudden it's like, oh. And then they go, yeah, we had a copy of such and such, but somebody bought it in like 5 minutes, and you're like, been looking for that for like 2 years. It's been on my Discogs for years. It's been on my want list. Man, I should have listened to myself. I should have said, no, I can wait. I can go over there right now and you're trying not to find anything. Oh yeah, Melinda. Yes, they did get here. I was gonna go over that next. Melinda very, very nicely sent me another box of surprise goodies, and again, I'm just overwhelmed. Of course, what I used for the snap photo for this is just I'm still amazed. She sent this to me. Sent me a copy of the archive Mickey Mouse black and white early years box set, which is something I've meant to get and wanted to get for an extremely long time. Again, this is one of the really nice hardcore animation collectors archive boxes that they did. And again, it was really the first time they were, trying to treat these extremely important and historically important shorts justice. And then after this, they finally did one of those Archive 10 DVD sets that was super limited. So you can get this content on DVD, but you're going to have to pay a lot for it. I think that's got a few extra shorts and a couple extras because it was like 2005, so it was a long time later. But this is just it's an immaculate shape, and again, I'm just blown away by Melinda's generosity in sending me this and a bunch of other goodies. So like I usually do, I'm going to show off a couple and then try and save the rest for the video upload, so I don't spoil everything for you guys. But again, I am overwhelmed. Another one she sent me that I've actually wanted to grab a copy of this for a long time, but it keeps eluding me. So I'm super excited to check out the pressing of Space Jam she sent over. I've always read this is supposed to have a really great AC3 track that's like really ballsy. And it's supposed to be a lot better, but then the DVD. In fact, when I first got into Laserdisc, one of the first things I read was Space Jam AC3 on Laserdisc is so much better than the DVD. It destroys it. So I was like, Space Jam? Really? Like, okay. I never really thought it was supposed to be a Sonic, multi-channel marvel or anything. But so I'm really excited to crank this up. Like I said, I've tried to get one of these for a long time. And it seems to be one of those that, because everybody has childhood nostalgia for it, they're like, oh, well, we can charge more for it. It's the same thing with the Rambos, the Predators, Alien, you know, anything that's technically common but is well known, or the Back to the Futures, you know, not its special laser disc, but they're going to charge you like it is. So I'm super excited to check this out. Let's see. And then one other one, and this was really cool because I had actually just recently um, started looking some of these up on the database, and because I never realized how many of the classic serials actually came out on Laserdisc. And I was like, you know, if I really started looking for some of these, a lot of them have only had, you know, so-so DVD releases, and very few, like only like one or two, I think, are out on Blu-ray even. But a lot of the DVDs are still based around Laserdisc masters. I found that out with Flash Gordon, for example. But Melinda very kindly sent me a copy of the classic Captain Marvel serial, which is actually one I have not seen, and I'm super excited to, because I've read a lot about it. It's one of the better known and better regarded classic serials. And this is a really nice Republic release, who actually seem to have cranked out a good number of serials on Laserdisc. And you know, it actually does have digital PCM audio, which is also really excellent, because you know, even though the audio is going to be limited on these being from, you know, older sources and prints and things, you know, it's great to have the best quality you can have. And then, of course, when you go to DVD, it goes to lossy audio. So any compression on, you know, already, you know, degraded source audio, you know, it's better to have the best you can. And so I'm just really excited to finally see this. And it's just great because I really started looking up, and it hadn't dawned on me how many serials made it to Laserdisc. I'm like, oh, wow. You know, I just thought it was like maybe one or two. You know, some of the early Superman serials, and some of the you know, early seasons of Superman episodes had Laserdisc releases. But you know, I thought because the Batman serials weren't on Laserdisc, and you know, a number of the, you know, like most famous ones, I was like, well, there probably aren't a lot, but no, there are. Like most of the Zorro serials are on Laserdisc, and a good number of the others. And it seems Republic was the big one on that. Um, Oh my gosh, Metro. Metro picked up The Japanese World Is Not Enough. He's so happy. Oh, good grief. I am happy for you. I am extremely envious of you. Um, I guess, did you pick it up from, I know Kevin Kobos, Good Squid, had one in his recent sale post, and I, I commented because I saw it a couple hours after it was posted, so I figured it was gone already. I'm like, I guess this is really expensive. And he's like, yeah. Um, oh man, be curious to ask, how much did you pay for your copy, whether you got it from Good Squid or not? If it was less than $100, then I'm extremely envious of you. um, Man, I'm just happy for you. That is, you know, that I talk about it being my white whale, but I know how hard it is to get any of those Japanese late release discs. They are just insanely rare and valuable, simply because of the rarity. Oh yeah, yeah. 4K is talking about the he's watching Magnum Force from the Laserdisc box set, and even though those have these you know, reprocessed for stereo surround mixes, hang on, somebody's decided my dog decided my tripod leg was a treat for his leash. um, anyway, yeah, they had these stereo surround mixes where they added the stereo stem scores over like the mono mix, and they had Dirty Harry's along with Bullet and some other Warner's titles have never had mono mixes out on home video. But later on, they got remixed to the 5.1 for the DVDs and Blu-rays, and I have to say, the old Laserdisc Pro Logic mixes for all of them sound really good. They've got really good fidelity, and even though they're not pure mono like they should be, at least for the first ones, Deadpool is the only one that was released in Dolby Stereo, so that one's fine. But for my money, all the sequels sound best on Laserdisc with those nice PCM stereo tracks. Even though they're not mono, they have great fidelity, and they sound better, a heck of a lot better than the 5.1 remixes that are later on. And pretty good transfers too for, you know, average Warner Brothers discs. So yeah, I totally agree with you on that. That is a nice watch. Oh, hey, Strictly Sega, how you doing? Let's see, Metro saying, Oh wow. Okay. He picked up the twine for 140, I guess CNDs, that Canadian, I guess. I mean that's not bad. That's not bad at all. Yeah, really wanting to complete the Bond collection. Yeah, I love the movie. Yeah. Oh no, I'm exactly there with you. I mean, I still have all my VHS tapes. My first Twine copy was the VHS, which I bought like, oh gosh, day of release when I was a kid, because I was like, I must have this. I was 10 years old, and like I wanted to like camp out in the store just so I could get my tape and get home, rip the plastic off, and watch it till it fell apart. Um, but yeah, I mean that's not bad for one of those, because the average price for one of those, or a super late Japanese release from like 2000, could easily be 350 US or more. Um, so yeah, if you get one of those and it's under, if it's under 200 US, you have a good deal. It's like, uh, well, I just bought a Laserdisc for $200, but it's a Japanese exclusive from 2000, so I feel slightly better about myself, and my wallet still hates me, but hey. Oh, okay, no Obi strip. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like, man, it's not complete. I wish it had it, but again, it probably would have added a ton to the cost, since everybody's obsessed with their Obi strips. And I mean, it's not essential. It's not like you won't be able to watch the Laserdisc because you don't have the Obi strip. But it's like, man, I just wish it had the Obi strip. Just for that completeness thing. But I just have to try and ignore it. I've got a couple Japanese LPs where, and like the Duran EP I was just talking about, it was such a great price and in great shape. It didn't have the Obi strip, so just try to ignore it. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that had an Obi strip. I'm just trying to pretend like it never did, so it doesn't bother me. Is Laserdisc database trustworthy to buy from? I mean, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's the one-stop hub and has been for years. But of course, it's not, you're not buying from the website. You're buying from individual sellers and stuff, and you got to read their shop policies, and you can look at ratings and stuff. But it's like anywhere, buying from a classified, it's on a forum or something, where you're buying from individual users. I do think there is. I've only bought from the database a couple times, actually. Um, been on there for years, but I haven't actually bought a whole lot. I think usually there's a number of sellers that try to price things, very well, and then there's some sellers who still kind of have a little bit of the mindset that laser discs are a new thing, and those original MSRP prices are still kind of relevant. So sometimes you see some where it's like got a super high price on it and it says like mint condition. So, you'd feel better ostensibly buying a mint graded disc from the Laserdisc database. So that's probably why you might pay more sometimes for discs on there. But for those late releases, it's usually a pretty good guarantee, because the people know what they have and they know what it is. And you're not talking to some guy on eBay who just thinks something is rare and it says, "Oh, it's from Japan. Oh, it's super rare." And then it gets to you, and one disc is warped, and one disc is the wrong movie, and you've just paid like a ridiculous amount for something. Because yeah, you're talking about some of the super late releases, like the Japanese X-Men and stuff. Um, yeah, I think other than the Laserdisc database, you'd have to go to like some of the groups on Facebook, because I know like Peter Biancardi had a lot of them. There are other people who have gotten a lot of Japanese late releases and then eventually sold some, or even gotten into Muse discs and stuff. And of course, it's going to be very few and far between when that happens. But outside of the Laserdisc database and like the random eBay posting, it's going to be the random Facebook group posts. Sorry, no, I'm not drinking. This is a Reed's ginger ale. I really love these. The super gingery extra brew kind. No, we're not sponsored. Yes, yeah, that not having the Obi strip service can cut the price in half, which is just crazy. But yeah, that's how ridiculous some people are about those Obi strips, man. They're just like crack. Is like, man, Obi strips gotta have it. Okay, yeah, Melinda's pointing out, yeah, if you're ever in doubt about the database, you can just shoot the seller a message and just get a discussion going, which is very true. I've had great experiences every time I've bought from the database. So Can't speak highly enough of it, but I just haven't bought a whole lot because usually the stuff I want I eventually find, or I try to find things locally and save a bit on shipping and stuff all the time. All right, Metro picked up two favorite horrors, Event Horizon and In the Mouth of Madness. Hope the transfers are good. Yeah, I mean, that I gotta say, I kind of have a little fun with that because you never know. I mean, usually by the early to mid 90s, every transfer is going to look good. But I still like playing that lottery where it's like you put a disc in and you don't know if it's going to have a problem or if it's going to be from like an actual worn print source and have scratches and nicks and tears and things. Um, but yeah, you should be good on those, especially if they're like later on remastered widescreen titles and stuff. But yeah, though. Oh, gosh, I haven't seen Event Horizon in a long while, and I think you brought up Mouth of Madness on the last stream. I've added that to my watch list. I've got to. Gosh, I have such a backlog. It's not even funny. Let's see. Yeah, like Melinda says, definitely message people first on those late releases because they are super rare and valuable, and you want to check condition. And it's like if you're looking for a Star Wars Technodisc or you're looking for a Star Wars Definitive Collection, and the only reason why I got one is I bought it from a group seller, and I was able to verify, no rot issues, it's complete, has the Leia welding, all the little questions you want to go through because it has all these little quirks. And if you're buying on eBay, it's just a crapshoot. You can message the seller, and they're probably going to go, well, who the heck is this guy? What's he talking about? Welding? What is rot? I just know this is a rare movie thingy and it's Star Wars, so it's worth $300. so, so yeah, especially with any big type item, yeah, just shoot them a message. Can't hurt. Um, and then sometimes on those big things, they have best offers accepted, so you might be able to get it down some from the list price, which is probably going to be quite high because those things are crazy rare. And I know I talk about the World Is Not Enough a lot, but that's not even one of the ones that everybody's after. It's like Mission Impossible 2, X-Men, and those can go for even higher dollar amounts. So, but yeah, definitely shoot them a message. 4K's talking about Cassavetes. Watching another one from the Criterion Blu-ray set. Talking about, oh gosh, Killing of a Chinese Bookie. Yeah, oh man, that is a good one. I don't really know if I have a favorite, and it's been a while on some of those. I think they just did there some art house theaters were having mini Cassavetes retrospectives. I don't know. I want to say they've done 4K scans on some of them at least, and that's why they were doing that. I could be wrong, but I want to say there's going to be like maybe a new disc set out at some point, or they've just done 4K transfers for the later on in the future stuff. But yeah, I really appreciate what he was able to do, for working outside the system and doing his own thing and everything. I don't know if I like all of them, but I can appreciate all of them at least. I'm not like faces and shadows are super important for their place in history and American cinema and things, but like it's not exactly the easiest thing to watch all the time. And I didn't ever watch those for a class or anything. I just watched because I always read about Cassavetes and I was just curious. So I tried to watch a lot of his stuff. Back when I was first getting into Criterion on DVD and was stuck primarily renting them from wherever I could find them, that actually find places that rented Criterion DVDs. But yeah, I don't know. I think Chinese Booking maybe might, if I had to pick a favorite one, it might be that one. But I've been meaning to go back. It's been too long since I've watched all of them anyway. But yeah, I do think a good number of them are very underrated, and I wouldn't say any of them were actually remade, but I think that a lot of people actually saw them in the industry and didn't really say that they did. And then it's like some of those kind of inspired other films, maybe not as like straight up remakes, but like similar ideas or similar like plot threads and stuff. Just seems kind of reminiscent of some of his stuff. I can't remember. I want to say. I know Leon the Professional, it's not a remake, but it's inspired by a film that, and I want to say it's actually a Cassavetes film from the 80s. Um, I just can't remember for certain. I can't even remember the title. I'd have to look it up again. But I want to say that's the one where that Leon is supposedly like inspired by. Um, Oh gosh, yeah, Metro picked up the Man with the Golden Gun, CBS Fox early version. He's talking about the audio being a mess. Yeah, it's a lot of people don't talk about it, and a lot of those discs have time compression on them, and the database talks about a couple. So I thought, okay, well, the films that are longer than 2 hours got squeezed onto one disc, and but of the ones I've picked up so far, Dr. No, Russia, and Goldfinger are fine. And I mean, the picture transfers in all of those for that time period are actually really good. But the first three and Living That Down the Man with the Golden Gun hold up because those were not in Panavision scope. So they're really more opened up. They're not really pan and scan. So while the picture is surprisingly good and sharp, unfortunately, the audio for all the later films is so sped up that it's just ludicrous. Not only is it analog only, so it's a bit noisy, but everybody is just running around on speed. It's just the picture's the same. Everything runs fine, but all the voices are pitched up so high. If you throw on Spy Who Loved Me and you're just watching the opening in the submarine, when the alarms start going off and everybody's running around and it's like, Captain to emergency stations, Captain to emergency stations. It's just hysterically bad. So I don't know who thought that was a good idea. I'm glad they at least corrected that in the next batch, even though there's still pan and scan. But if you look at the audio on Man with the Golden Gun, I found an interesting thing. If you look at the next release that came out, that was still 133, but it's actually on 2 discs, has a nice gatefold, and it has the revamped artwork with the Bond logo going on the side, the late 80s art. Um, Really nice transfer. It's the same source used for the widescreen one, which came out really late in the game. But the audio is a nice mono that's much improved over the old one. And then when you go to the widescreen one, it's the same source in widescreen, but the audio is like so improved you'd swear it's stereo sometimes. So it's pretty cool, and that's the reason why I like having both of them. Of course, I grew up watching Golden Gun on tape in 133 anyway, and you can watch those 5 bonds in 133 and actually be fine, but you're not losing pertinent information. But yeah, those early CBS Fox ones, if you're not looking at the ones for the first three, I mean that audio compression, that speed up is just ludicrous. It's like the what I complain about PAL speed up, the 4% speed up on British DVDs and Region 2 stuff. I mean, that's bad and that drives me crazy. But push comes to shove, you could live with it. But these CBS Fox discs, oh my gosh, it's like I don't know what the percentage of speed up is, but it makes the PAL speed up look like nothing. It's just hysterical. Um, that cracked me up, and I didn't realize it affected so many of those. And it's kind of sad because the picture quality is actually really good. Okay, yeah, Sega's talking about being super patient on Yahoo Auctions looking for those crazy rare late releases. Uh, okay, using Zen Market and finding late ones mixed in with other discs. Okay, man, you got Fight Club with 30 other discs for cheap. Wow, yeah. I gotta say, I haven't seen one of those specifically, but I've heard of something similar where you buy like a bunch of Japanese discs, and because they think, oh well, this is old and nobody wants this anymore, and they'll just sell it. And Japanese imports themselves are a little bit more valuable than a common U.S. one. So you can get a lot of interesting stuff, and then in the middle of like 20 or 30 discs, you get one of the ones like you're really wanting, but you don't want to say anything. It's like, yeah, I bought 40 discs for two, and one of them is from 2000. So yeah, I got the sell, yeah, or something like that. Okay, Alvin picked up the Star Wars Special Edition trilogy. Ooh, the German version. Um, Okay. Oh, yeah, that's the one that has the gold Vader art instead of the silver one. Yeah, that's interesting. I remember seeing that on the database when I first started looking up the various releases of Star Wars when I was first getting into Laserdisc, and I was really surprised that everybody's using the silver one because here in the States on the VHS boxes, which are pretty much the only ones anybody sold in stores or owned, everybody had the gold one. and I knew there was a silver one, but as a kid, I didn't know what it was supposed to mean. But the gold one was also what was used. Almost all the imagery and posters were either bronze or gold for the logos, and he had the gold leader on the side. And what I came to realize later is that the silver tape set was the letterboxed one. So then it made sense why the Laserdiscs were using the silver one, because the Laserdiscs were letterboxed and designed for the serious cinephile and stuff. So that was why you had the gold and silver thing. And I like both renderings. So when I saw the German release actually was gold, I was like, that's pretty cool, and that's a big throwback to my childhood golden tape set, which I actually still have both of them. I have my childhood gold one, and then I eventually picked up the silver one before I was in the realm of Laserdisc. So it's pretty cool that they did those, and that's how they differentiated between the two. But yeah, it's really cool. The German one actually has the gold on it. Let's see. Okay, yeah, you're still talking about Man with the Golden Gun. Yeah, no, it's not you. If you're talking about the audio, it's because the early CBS Fox extended plays for almost all the Bonds are horrendously audio sped up. Now, again, I don't know if it's all of them, but I'd heard mentions on a few being that way, but it's pretty much all of them outside of the original three that I've checked. Um, it's a and it's pretty much all the 70s ones so far. Like I do have the Thunderball one, and it does have speed up, but doesn't seem as bad. I didn't watch it all the way through, but I wanted to check through and look at the transfers and things. But Man with the Golden Gun, Spy, Moonraker, um, I don't have 4 Years Only yet. Octopussy's actually okay on the original MGM one because it came out in that very early MGM cover variant with the rainbow video disc banner on top. And that one's actually okay. That one doesn't have speed up because that was a new film at the time anyway. And it's on 2 discs. Unfortunately, that can be rot prone. So that's the problem there. And then later on, it came out in the CBS Fox style. But I think it's pretty much all of the 70s films that are going to have speed up, it seems. Maybe 4 Years Only, but I haven't seen that one yet. But I don't know, because that would have also been a modern film at the time. So I'm not for certain, but pretty much most of those CBS Fox ones, for a good number of the films, have that audio speed up. So I would definitely recommend the letterbox version because it's phenomenal. It was the last, along with the License to Kill reissue, to come out here in the States in the main letterbox series. So it's got the nice updated artwork with the original poster one sheet jacket and a nice gatefold. And I also like the 133 reissue, the one under More Classics, I think is the banner. But yeah, that one's really great. But the audio on the letterbox one is significantly improved. It's the best sounding release of the film, period. Sounds better than the Lossy Mono and the later releases. Sounds excellent, and again, a great picture transfer. Um, yeah, covers and picture quality are great. Nothing else. Yeah. Um, and yeah, that was a weird thing. I think they must have just found like the sound master or something for the widescreen pressing, because the difference in sound is that dramatic. That being said, there have been rumors that apparently there were stereo mixes for some of the Bond films, and they're floating around in various vaults. Um, and Golden Gun is mentioned as having magnetic stereo. So it's a good number of them actually. On Her Majesty's Secret Service, Live and Let Die, Man with the Golden Gun. I've heard rumors that have been somewhat confirmed by various people, just like the several Bonds that were in 70 millimeter blow up prints. There's a very few number of those. Octopussy was one, Moonraker was one, and Spy may have had some 70 engagements. Um, and then it's also rumored that You Only Live Twice had a 70 millimeter print for the Japanese premiere back in '67. So there's a lot of little interesting variants there that have just not been cataloged. And so it's like, can I just be Eon's archivist for a little while, so I can see if this stuff is really there somewhere in like a vault in London or something? Um, But yeah, the widescreen pressing, the sound on there, even though it's still mono, it is unbelievably good. Like I said, you'd swear it's stereo half the time. It sounds so good. Um, yeah, yeah, Elvin. Yeah, it's the one Laserdisc set that for some reason used the Gold Vader art that here in the States was only on the main tape release. So that's why I really like that box. Even though I'm sure it's probably the same masters as the US SE set. I really like the fact that somewhere in the world they got the gold art. And I love both of them. It's a really classy piece of artwork if you guys have never seen it. Sorry, excuse me. It's the one where you have the side of Vader's helmet and you have either gold or silver behind it, and it's a nice cast. It's just very classy looking, very stylish, looks great on a poster and stuff. And that's what they used for the main special edition campaign of ads. But yeah, yeah, it's really cool that somebody got the gold one. Um, I did find some other things. I was like, I thought I had some other stuff down here. I made a big box. Um, Picked up a few discs from I'm probably not gonna say this right, but Pericles Thorson or Pericles, or I'm not exactly sure how he pronounces his first name. But he had a nice bunch of different sales in some of the groups, and so I picked up a couple discs from him that will be in the next video as well. But this is the one I've been after for a while. This is the encore double feature of classic noirs, The Killers and Crisscross, both starring Burt Lancaster and both directed by Robert Siodmak. The Killers is one of the great important noirs that is going to be in all the books and stuff, so it's essential viewing. But Crisscross is also excellent if you've never seen it, and has a really nice gatefold with good write-ups on each film. And I'm really kind of sad Universal didn't do more of these double feature sets because they were really, really good, and they started doing these in like the mid 90s. And I hadn't realized they did so many until I started looking around, and it was like, there's this one, there's some of the classic horror sequels, and then there's the Anthony Mann Western set that I managed to pick up that has the Far Country with Bend of the River. So, and they have PCM mono as well. So again, really nice upgrades for these, which had before only been on tape and dubious transfers and stuff. And then I picked up two of the Columbia Award winners discs that I had been, just meaning to pick up because, they're two of the great titles, and I wanted to check out the PCM audio and simply because I've loved the covers anyway. So I picked up the Columbia On the Waterfront release, which I don't know who was in charge of these jackets, but they knew what they were doing. They put the iconic scenes on the jacket, the ones that everybody knows if they've never seen the film, and they look great. They're printed well. They're not color tinted, and they have the really classy, Studio Heritage Award winner banner with the Oscars logo. And I don't think it gets much better than this for cover art for classic films. Like On the Waterfront, yes, the Criterion box set is great, and it has the nice, kind of modern art rendering. But this is what everybody wants to see. Everyone has picked this up and do the whole. Oh gosh, I don't even want to try to do pretty job, but everybody wants to do. It was you, Charlie. Charlie could have been a contender. But yeah, really great write-up like the rest of the series. And even though these didn't really have extras on them, it was really nice to see a studio stepping up and doing, I don't know if I'd say like Criterion level of detail, but they're actually trying with their great important films. And then here you have the film's original one sheet here for reference. So pretty nice. And again, this is a 1:3:3 transfer, which this film has a couple different ratios. It was in the early widescreen days, and on the Criterion box, you get the choice between 1:3:3, 1:8:5, and 1:6:6. So for the longest while, this was the last time you could see the film. Well, no, I take that back. Because the DVD was 1:3:3. It was, you couldn't see it in widescreen for until Criterion did the Blu-ray. But really nice jacket on this. And then the same for the 1953 Columbia Classic From Here to Eternity. And again, this is the only cover you should ever put on this film. Beautiful printing, not color tinted, not a lot of stuff cluttering it up. I mean, I could have been just happy without anything on it but the image, but it's really well done and easily the best cover this film's had. And even though the nice new Sony remasters out on Blu-ray, I just wanted to pick this up to check out the transfer and the PCM audio, and just because this cover's so great. This is one of the iconic film scenes of the 50s, let alone just most iconic scenes ever. If you've never seen this film, I definitely highly recommend it, of course. But I mean, just this is one of the great romance scenes in motion pictures. Period. Um, a little bit different jacket design, but again, you get the film's original one sheet here for reference, and I just really like what Columbia or Sony was doing with these back in the day. And again, even though no real special features, just really nice jackets, and it just has a sense of class to it. So I really, really like that, and I'm glad I finally picked those up. I'm gonna go over those again with the other ones I picked from him in the next video. Let's see, got some new comments. Metro's talking about sealed smell. Yeah, it smelled like the 80s. Yeah, I don't know how I know that. I was born in 2000. Oh yeah, I know the feeling. I've opened some sealed LPs and Laserdiscs and things, and then it's like, oh gosh, the oldest sealed thing I ever opened, I got a soundtrack from 1967, and I was so happy, and it was actually still sealed, and I'm like, wow, and I opened it, and I'm like, 1967 packing plant, yeah. And of course, I pull out the LP, and it looks pristine, and then I put it on, and it had a lot of noise because it was 60s vinyl. So I'm like, yeah, sealed things are nice, but at least for some things, it doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be great. But yeah, opening that seal of something like super old, you're just like, wow, I feel like this is a time capsule of trapped dirt and smells and hopefully nothing bad. I mean, it's like when you get a used record and you don't know what's going to come out of it. I have not had like the stereotype of somebody gets like, especially like an old prog record or something from the 70s, and they open it and they have like an actual smashed joint fall out. That's not happened to me, but I've heard people recount that story on many different occasions, and I'm like, okay, that'd be a little bit weird. Yeah, sometimes you never know what's going to be inside stuff. Uh, yeah, yeah. I mean, these are some really really nice titles. And again, the Columbia Award ones, they're not anything special in terms of content or rarity or whatever. Although some of them, I guess they didn't make too many of, because it's like trying to collect all the RKO Classic Collection discs. Some are pretty common, some are not expensive, and then some you just don't find. So I have that kind of crazy desire, like some people have done, to collect all of those, because I love RKO, and then a number of those didn't ever make it to DVD still to date, so it is kind of important. But just like with these Columbia Award discs, they sometimes can just be very elusive. And then you keep seeing the same ones over and over again. It's like, no, I want it. And you see that banner and you're like, oh yeah, and then you pull it up and you're like, oh, it's another copy of that. Oh, I already have one. Yeah, Melinda, they don't get very collected very much. Yeah, I found that interesting. At least, there's at least a couple group members that talk about getting all the RKO discs, which makes my inner film historian nerd happy, because I'm like, wow, people are actually talking about RKO. I can't believe it. Dude, I'm just happy anybody knows that RKO was actually a thing. um, but yeah, neither the RKOs, but especially these Columbias, I guess, because they're not viewed as like a specific series, even though technically they are. I guess they should have put spine numbers on them to look super criterion-y. Um, yeah, Gary, the vast majority of stuff just gets dumped out on Blu-ray today. Yeah, and half the time you don't hear about it, or if it's one of the specialty labels, then they charge specialty label prices, and then you have availability problems. Like, I was hoping today to be talking about the brand new release of Johnny Quest from Warner Archive, but I did the whole pre-order thing, and then that got messed up because the stock got messed up, which seems to happen on a lot of specialty labels. So now I'm stuck trying to reorder it from somewhere, and it seems like it's selling out a lot because people are excited, which is good. So I hope that reaffirms to the company, to Warner Brothers, that people are interested and invested in classic animation, because that's what happened on the Warner Archive Mask of the Phantasm Blu-ray, and that's what led to the release of the animated series. But unfortunately, when they realize things are popular on the archive, then it gets shuttled over to the studio line, and then they do things like cramming too much on single discs, and the encoding isn't as good as it would have been on the Warner Archive release, which is what's happened with the first classic Scooby-Doo HD material. They released the Scooby-Doo movie set today, and it's got a like $50 price tag. It's done by the main Warner label, and even though they brought back some of the episodes that have been lost for licensing, it's nearly complete. It's only missing like 2 or 3 episodes, but they crammed all of these hour-long shows onto 2 Blu-rays with lossy audio. So it's like, and you're still going to charge us $50. It's like, can we just get the archive guys to just do everything? Because they use dual layer Blu-rays, and they, make sure to get every extra, and they max out their bit rates and stuff. So I don't mind buying a Warner Archive title and, having to, save up and pay a bit more for each of those, because I know they're going to do their darndest to do the disc justice. I mean, when they went to do Night Moves, which is one of the most underrated films of the 1970s, there was no HD master anywhere, so they literally twisted the studio's arm to do a brand new 4K negative scan, because that film's negative had never been scanned, period. And so that Blu-ray is a revelation in a lot of ways. And they just did that because they were just determined to make a great disc. So yeah, it's not just the fact that things are lazily dumped out. A lot of times they are lazily encoded by studios that are just not paying attention, it seems. Um, a little bit parched. Let's see, catching up here. Okay, yeah, Metro's got a number of Columbia that have rot. Yeah, any Sony title, that's always a problem because of their very famed DADC plan. I've had good luck with the classic ones, though. I know there's a couple, just like there's a couple Criterions, the ones made by 3M, that have, possible rot reports on the database. So I always try and check out, if there's a title I'm interested in. But it seems the classic ones don't really have that issue. And just like there's DADC press titles that are Criterions that are actually fine. So it does happen. But yeah, especially if you get like some of the main Sony titles that are notorious rotters, of course, Air Force One. But I've never even gotten the special edition Close Encounters because I know it's DADC and there's significant rot report on it. So I've kind of avoided that even. And I'd love to have that as that's the one I'm missing, even though I don't like that version. I have problems. I have many copies of Close Encounters, including copies of versions I don't like. Okay, yeah, Bad Boys and the '98 Godzilla are the best Columbia releases. Yeah, I don't own the '98 Godzilla, but from everything I've read, I would say that's probably one of the best, because it is getting on later in the day, and that was their big effects film of the year. And all the DVDs and the Blu-rays have been great, and they just did it in 4K. That's been a title that Sony does. It's like one of their benchmarks, like the Fifth Element. Every time a new format or something comes out, they do it. They do a Super Bit DVD. They do whatever. Um, and Fifth Element has a great Laserdisc if you get a Pioneer one, just like Men in Black, same thing. And Men in Black is the other Sony title that they just do it every format. And the mastered in 4K Blu-rays, the Blu-ray, the 4K UHD release. And the Laserdisc of that is great. But again, you have to find a Pioneer press, not a DADC one. So yeah, it's kind of a hodgepodge. So I'm very hesitant if I ever look at any Columbia or Sony disc from pretty much the '90s onward. But if it's one of the classic ones, I usually feel pretty confident. And then if I look it up and there's no rot reports, I'm like, okay, this seems like it's gonna work. But yeah, you never know for sure with those pesky DADC pressings. Ooh, Strictly Sega has asked a good one. What is the best starter Errol Flynn film? Ooh, that is a good one. Well, as Bit Kid and Melinda are going for, yeah, Adventures of Robin Hood is the easy answer. Uh, but Gary points out Captain Blood. That's my personal favorite. I saw Adventures of Robin Hood first, but Captain Blood is the one that did it. Captain Blood is the one that made me just totally hooked on and obsessed. And I do think it's just like all the main Errol Flynn films. They are all extraordinarily underrated and so important. Especially if you like any instance of classic adventure, classic action films. But yeah, I'd say either one of those. Adventures of Robin Hood is the easiest because its appeal is so widespread, and it's still the definitive Robin Hood film, even more so than the original silent Douglas Fairbanks Sr. version. Which those two, the silent version is great, and it is one of the great silent poems. And the 1938 Adventures of Robin Hood is the classic de facto standard everybody knows. But yeah, that would be the easiest one to go with. But my personal favorite is Captain Blood, which I think is probably the best pirate film ever made. Seconded only by the Seahawk, which is the 1940 classic Errol Flynn film, and also the one that Warner Archive has put out. Let's see, do I have it on the shelf here? Ah, I knew it was here somewhere. The beautiful Warner Archive Blu-ray. You can pick it up on Laserdisc as well, and on Laserdisc, that was the first time they restored it with. There's a significant portion that is sepia toned, and then the rest of the film is in black and white. But this is the other great pirate film, I'd say. These are what really define the genre. You have Fairbanks and the Black Pirate. You have the Burt Lancaster pirate films like Crimson Pirate, for example. But Captain Blood and Seahawk are outstanding. And then his westerns are also great, like the all-time classic Dodge City, which is another great Blu-ray. This is the first time they fixed the Technicolor registration, so everything is perfectly aligned, and it looks fantastic. I know I'm getting a bit into an Errol Flynn rant here, but as much as Dodge City is important, my favorite Flynn Western, and one of the best Westerns I've ever seen, and I actually saw it, it was on, I think it was on Western Magazine's top 50 Westerns of all time. This is included in the kind of rare out of print set, the Flynn Western set. Most people don't realize he actually was in a good number of Westerns, because for a while they're like, well, we'd like to put him in Westerns, but we don't know if anybody would believe an Australian as a Western guy. Now we'll do it anyway. We'll just see if they like it. But the same cast, well, some of the same cast and the same crew returned about 6 months later after Dodge City was a huge success. And they made this lower budget black and white Western with similar title. Virginia City is a phenomenal Western. It's also set during the Civil War. So there's a Civil War subplot about Confederate agents trying to smuggle in gold to finance the Confederacy in the waning stages of the war. There's a lot of great stuff going on here. And this is a fantastic Western if you've never seen it. So if you're interested in Flynn in general, Adventures of Robin Hood, Captain Blood, and if you're interested to see an Australian leading a Western, I'd recommend Virginia City especially. But Dodge City is one of the classic standard Westerns. It's got the biggest bar brawl you'll ever see in your life. Where you have the dancing hall girl on the stage, and then a fight breaks out, and there's like 200 guys in a bar, and they're just breaking the chairs and throwing guys through windows and throwing the beer glasses down the bar and stuff. So if you watch Dodge City, you'll suddenly recognize so many touchstones you've seen in like 1,000 Westerns. And what is really great is most of Errol's films are actually out on DVD. You can see my shelf here. They did 2 signature volumes from Warner Brothers, and they did the Westerns box, and then they did one of these TCM archive boxes, which you can actually get for pretty cheap on eBay. And that collects most of the pretty much most of the wartime era films he did. So with these 4 box sets, none of which are super expensive, you can actually get most of his well-known output. It's just the the stray couple of films that he made after he left Warner Brothers that are kind of harder to track down. But I could go on and on. I think most of the films he did are just fantastic because he was paired with so many great directors, great writers, and was really an underrated actor, I think. Um, but yeah, long story short, I'd say Captain Blood, but Adventures of Robin Hood is an easy one. But you really can't go wrong with any of them. Uh, Alrighty, so catching up here. Oh yeah, Gary's trying to get the Ghostbusters 4K. Oh gosh, yeah, yeah. Best Buy is just a mess for stock, and they've always been that way. And then their website doesn't match their store inventory, and their store inventory doesn't match what's on the shelf. And then sometimes, as your last ditch, you have to play hide and seek because it'll say there's copies in the store, and then you find it on some obscure end cap on the floor in the camera section, or you find it in a little cardboard standee like at the cash register, or the little shelf in the cash register aisle, or a little cardboard standee box in the refrigerators. And it's just a mess. And unfortunately, almost every store is like that, if they have any stock at all. I was trying to just go ahead and I was going to try and get Johnny Quest at Barnes and Noble, and they're also doing their big Blu-ray DVD sale right now, which is supposed to be online, but you're all supposed to get discs in store. But there's only like one tiny sign, and it's supposed to be most everything on sale. And then they didn't have anything, so I tried to order a title in the store, and then it says there's none in their warehouse, and so I stood there for another 10 minutes, and just to realize it wasn't going to work. So then I just had to leave after another wasted 10 minutes. Um, and I know Barnes and Noble is, they're supposedly going to go through a buyout, and it was kind of weird going through there, especially in the video section. So many bare shelves and things. It's just kind of like if they go, who's going to be left in terms of at least just a bookstore. Not that I go there a lot because I'm not really into paying for memberships, and I just go there usually for the sales, or if there's like a specific item I need that only they are going to have. But if they go, we're going to be left with, literally, for books, it's going to be the tiny shelf of like popular current bestsellers in Walmart, or like Books A Million is still around, but they're much less of a presence now. So but yeah, it's not just Best Buy, and Best Buy is like the main video retailer we still have, and they've shrunk their sections down to nothing. And like you were saying, yeah, they'll have 400,000 copies of Captain Marvel, and they'll have cards to buy the Captain Marvel digital copy that you could just buy on your phone or whatever. Of course, I don't know why you'd buy a digital copy, because I think they're stupid. I'm like, oh, if you really wanted to make a digital copy, you could just, uh, I don't know, like find ways of, ripping your own copy that you've already bought. um, but yeah, it's like all the things you don't want. And then if you have a question, you can't find anybody. But if you know what you want, everybody and their brother is going to stop you in Best Buy and ask you if you need assistance. And then you're like, no, I know what I'm here for. And then you go through, and then of course it's not there, and you look, and it's supposed to be there in the store. And then you turn around to ask somebody, and there's no one there. It's a ghost town. You just wander around the store looking for what little cubby hole might have the item you're looking for. And then if you do find one, it's a copy beat to crap in like one of those Blu-ray eco cases with like a big hole in it. And you're like, hey, this has been fun. I'm not bitter. Yeah, so I know your pain. Yeah, so many wasted trips. Oh yeah, Metro's talking about, yeah, so few places in town, and then most of the time you find those 4Ks and they don't have the slip covers. Yeah, what's up with that? It's like, they should at least print enough for the first batch, but it doesn't even seem like they do that. Or maybe stores just like rip them off and throw them away or something. I don't know, but yeah, it seems like it's harder to get slip covers on new 4Ks than even Blu-rays were. Blu-rays had some problems, but at least that wasn't like a super big one. And then like a lot of the Shout Factory releases have slip covers early on for like the first pressings, and it's like a collector's item. And then you get it in the store, or you get it online, half the time it doesn't have the slip on it. And it's like, well, this is brand new. It should have a slip cover on it. Um, I know because I really want to get the new release of Frankenstein Created Woman, which also I tried to get at Barnes and Noble and it didn't work. And the transfer review looks really, really good, and that's one of the underrated Hammer horrors. So I was super excited, and of course I'm like, well, if I order it online somewhere, it may show up and it doesn't have the slipcover with the custom art. And normally I don't care about that kind of stuff. But I'm like, well, if it's a collectible thing and you buy it when it's brand new and it's supposed to be there, you know, it should be there. um, yeah, so yeah, that's kind of silly that we're having so much trouble with that still. Yeah, I want my slips. Yeah. Uh, oh, Sega's been having an Ozploitation week. Oh man, that's gotta be cool. Yeah, I've seen part of Men from Hong Kong before. I need to finally see the whole thing. Sadly, I'm not too up to date in my Ozploitation. I didn't even really know that was a thing until I read an article about it a couple years ago before they made the. There's a pretty good documentary about the whole Ozploitation movement and scene and such, because it's like there's this explosion of creativity and new stuff out of Australia at the same time. And I stumbled onto it because I always love finding out more about the original '79 Mad Max, which I think is just an incredible piece of work, especially when you realize it was made for no money by first timers. And it fits right into that whole Ozploitation genre, if you want to call it a genre. So yeah, and some of those, from what I've seen, they are a lot of fun. So I really need to beef up on my exploitation. Let's see. Oh, cool. Atrix here. Hey, man. Oh, oh gosh, playing Black Ops Zombies, Varuk. Oh gosh. Yeah, I was huge on the original War version. I remember when that came out, and before anybody knew about it, you beat the game and you get thrown right into the first Nacht der Untoten. Oh man, that was, everybody played that, and it was like, see how high up you can get in the ranks and just try to survive. Yeah. Oh gosh, I still like playing that every once in a while. Um, I've tried some of the other ones, but it's like every time I go to one of those, it's like they try to add a story and all this other stuff, and I wander around. I don't know what I'm doing. Like the one for the last World War II game on PS4 and Xbox One, it's like they drop you in a whole city and you just wander around with people online, and you're supposed to do all this stuff, but it doesn't really tell you what you're doing. So I just wandered around, and it was like I'm in a whole city and I just didn't know what to do, and there's stuff everywhere, and then like all these different zombie types, and I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing. So I tried it for like half an hour, and I'm like, geez, this is too much. Oh man. Yeah, yeah, Nocturne Totem. I mean, I do like the whole concept, you know, but I like having more strategy involved, you know, trying to hole up somewhere and survive as long as you can, especially playing with friends and trying to. It's also pretty funny if you have like a strategy going and you're playing with friends or somebody online, and then all of a sudden they do the wrong thing. And it's like, no, 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 and they do the wrong thing, and you just get overloaded, and it's like you lasted for 20 rounds and you were going for like a high record, and they do something stupid the last minute, you just get overrun, and it's like, we were doing great, man. You didn't watch the back window. I was down, and then you didn't revive me, man. We played this for 2 hours. We were doing great, and then you messed it up at the last minute. Oh gosh, yeah. I really do hope they do a World War II sequel, because that was a really fun one. I mean, I'm more interested in the historical ones anyway. So that was the first Call of Duty in a while that I actually, you know, bought when it was new and played through the story, which was, it was okay. But the multiplayer's been really fun, and it's still fun. It's, you know, there's nobody hacking. It's pretty simple and straightforward, and I much prefer that. Even though I know there's a lot of people like Black Ops 4 and stuff, but yeah, I really enjoyed the historical ones. Or, you know, I guess for lack of a better term, simplistic, but you know, I can get much more involved in that. But yeah, the World at War zombies, World at War is still my favorite Call of Duty. So yeah, you can tell I like the historical ones. But yeah, that brings back a lot of memories. Let's see. What next? Sega's talking about anybody else disappointed in Captain Marvel. I've heard a lot of that. I will admit I still haven't seen it yet because I'm still catching up on all the Marvel stuff. I'm trying to check them off one at a time so I don't. I know you can really see them whenever there's not really a specific reason to watch them in order, but I've been trying to watch through them over the years because it's just not really my thing. I mean, I read Marvel comics every once in a while. I'm more of a DC guy, but I can appreciate it. And I guess they're okay. They just, I don't know. It's just not really my thing. So people drag me to some, and then I get some others on Blu-ray and catch up on a few here and there. But yeah, it seems like there was a lot of people going, yeah. I mean, it was okay, but it wasn't like super great or anything. And I don't know. I'm just kind of waiting for the whole superhero bubble to kind of burst because I'm amazed that we're still going on and it's still the defining number one genre of appeal to this day. Because usually by this point in time, audience tastes change and shift to something else. So I'm just curious to see when we're going to get that backlash of we've had enough of this or we're getting tired of this. Because when Disney took over Star Wars, they cranked out Force Awakens, and then they did Last Jedi and Solo, and automatically are hitting a okay, you've done too much already. Yet they seem to be happy with the God knows how many Marvel movies, even the ones that there's like, oh well, it was kind of boring or it was kind of average, but it was okay. I went and saw it 3 times. I'm like, well, no, it doesn't make sense. Like, but I guess if that's what everybody likes, I don't know. I just don't get it. But yeah, it seems like that one is one of the ones where it is just kind of like everybody's kind of just like, yeah, it was okay. Of course, for us, it means we found out that Sam Jackson likes Laserdisc, so maybe he should join the Facebook group. So I guess that's the big thing all of us took out of that when that got quoted in a um, news article somewhere where they were like, "Oh yeah, I wish this was back from the '90s, and I wish this was back from the '90s," and then they are all like, "And Sam Jackson wish we had Laserdisc because he loves those things," and we're all like, "What? Join the group." Um, let's see. Okay, Atrax says World War and Black Ops 1 are great, and Black Ops 4 sucks. Okay, yeah, I tried the beta when they had it as a free demo, and I was just like, yeah, I don't really like this, It wasn't, I guess it was better than Black Ops 3 where everybody was just running on walls and flying around on jetpacks, and I was just like, what is going on? But yeah, it's not for me. Black Ops 2, I think, is probably the best multiplayer they've ever had in terms of, not having too much, but having it well rounded and it moves smoothly and stuff. If you could still find clean lobbies in Black Ops 2, I'd still play Black Ops 2. I still think that's a great game and they were trying, different stuff. Um, Not to get into a big COD discussion. Let's see. Metro's gonna buy the Day of the Dead collection edition and didn't do it when he couldn't find one with the slip. Yeah, those slips, man. It's supposed to be there. It's a collector's edition for a reason. It's supposed to have a slip cover. Yeah, it may be on sale, but it doesn't have the slip cover. It's like half the value, man. It's important. Um, Yeah, Elvin's talking about some of the UK Hammer releases on Blu-ray are region free. Yeah, I've noticed that it is pretty cool. Gosh, I really want to pick up the Indicator ones. Indicator is such a great British label, and most of their releases are actually region free. And they've done, I think it's 3 volumes of Hammer films, and they're all like done on a theme. So some of them have the full-on Hammer horrors, like some of the Frankensteins and some of the I don't think they have any of the Draculas, but they've also mixed in some of the psychological horrors Hammer was doing, sort of in the mold of what in the post-Psycho years, what Bill Castle would turn out. But the Hammer ones are pretty interesting. Except, getting a lot of those UK discs, you have to deal with import fees and expense and cost. And as much as I'd love all of them, I can't afford it. But then the sad part is a lot of those are limited. So then when they're gone, and then you have to pay a lot more for them. But yeah, even some of the regular Hammer ones are starting to be region free, and it seems like they're starting to figure out that DNR is not a good thing. So some of the later ones, Hammer and Studio Canal and others have put out have been like really good looking if you look at some of the reviews. So that is a good sign. And then there are some German ones too that are also, I think, region free. It's just always difficult to track down all the various Hammer releases because they're spread out all over the place, and then they would have different studio ties. So then they have tons of different video labels they're out on. I'm just surprised that we're getting so much Hammer love now. That's pretty cool. Let's see. Okay, Metro said Dark Phoenix. Okay, disappointing ending, but actually enjoyed most of it and has read the saga. Okay, you know, I have to say, I kind of wondered. Like, I thought about seeing it because I didn't see Apocalypse, and then I finally picked it up on Blu-ray for dirt cheap and just watched it out of curiosity. And I knew everybody said, "Oh, it's terrible" or "It's not very good," and I, I thought it was okay. I have to admit, like, I've actually surprisingly not disliked any of the X-Men movies. Like, yeah, X-Men 3 is a mess, but it's not horrible. I mean, Origins Wolverine, yeah, it has a lot of bad stuff in it, but again, it's not the worst thing in the world. But you know, those two aside, the rest of the X-Men franchise, they've been roughly solid. I think because they weren't under, you know, like the Marvel Formula Committee, and they were at Fox, you know, who just kind of let them do their own thing, sort of. So I was kind of curious, you know, if I thought about I might actually go see Dark Phoenix just out of curiosity. And of course, it's going to be the last gasp of, you know, what got started back in 2000, because now Marvel's under Disney, and there was the talk for a while that Disney was going to try and bury it and not release it at all, or do maybe straight to VOD or something. So I mean, I think they did the right thing in releasing it, but I think everybody kind of knew that it probably was going to get bad reviews and just like come and go really fast. Um, I was also trying to see if there would be any like movie cash tie-ins with like re-release Blu-rays to like pick up one or two that I've missed out on, and then, you know, get a free movie ticket. So I'm going to look into that now. Actually, I think it's just repackagings of the old ones, but there's one or two that I'm missing that I'd like to pick up. Um, but yeah, I have this strange curiosity about saying it because I actually liked things in Apocalypse. I didn't expect to. So um, let's see. Um, okay, Melinda says, can we all agree that for those who collect current media, that you can actually go to a store and purchase a new release? Yeah. Oh gosh. Oh gosh, yeah, Melinda only collects Laserdisc. Wow. Yeah, that's true. It's not like you can walk in a store and be like, "Oh wow, that's the new CAV release this week," and plunk down your, you know, super high Laserdisc era money for it. But yeah, oh gosh, yeah. That is true. You know, at least you can walk in a store and hope that they're going to have stock of something, you know, even though it's shrinking further and further. But like, you know, on release day or Tuesday, whatever week it is, you know, actually go into a Target and at least, if they don't have it, at least see the shelf tag for something, you know, and be like, oh, yeah, it's on back order. Yes, it's out today, but, you know, at least it's in our system. Now, can you imagine if you walked in a Target and saw a Laserdisc on the clearance aisle? Um, I had a experience. I was in a Walmart the other day, and they had a small clearance shelf like you would at Target, and on an end cap in the back of the, you know, electronics section, which is literally, you know, like so tiny it's not even a section. And so I'm like, oh well, you know, maybe there's like an adapter cable or something. It was like a mix of phone cases and stuff. And then in the middle of it, they had 2 packs of Sony DV tapes, still sealed. And I'm like, wait, they had DV tapes in the stock somehow? Wow, I thought those had gotten all cleared out like 10 years ago at least. So yeah, they were still selling DV tapes in the clearance bin. So I was like, wow, that's weird. So just imagine if you found a Laserdisc. You know? I have seen Target do clearances on vinyl when they carry some of the modern reissues like Walmart does, and those little like cubby shelf things will be like 15 or 20 of like the most common bought ones on Amazon, and you can buy them in a store. And I've seen Target clearance those out because they apparently don't sell them in Target. You know, they don't move a whole lot. So yeah, imagine if you saw a Laserdisc somewhere. Let's see. Hunter's only collecting Laserdiscs right now, but used to when he was doing HD DVD, got everything I wanted. Yeah. Well, that is true. Back in 2007 or so, when during the format wars, home media was a lot more important and people were buying a lot more. Whereas now it's like you're lucky if you get one shelf or the dump bin. Walmart got rid of their Blu-ray dump bin, so that was really strange and striking. It's like, wow, that's got to be an indicator of something. But they kept the 374 dump DVD bin that nobody asked for, but it's always empty. So apparently everybody always raids that thing. But yeah, it does reaffirm the fact that home media, physical media is becoming less of an important thing, but it is still viable and important. And my fear is just that eventually it's going to get to a point where they try and say, well, people don't want physical media. We don't need to do it at all. And then everybody's going to come to realize when it bites them in the rear that there's so much that incorporates that you can't just get rid of it because, yeah, streaming's convenient, but it's got a lot of issues. Um, okay, Metro's talking about the new Godzilla. I guess is that the oh gosh, what is it? Is that the King of the Monsters one? I gotta say I haven't really been interested in the modern Godzilla and Kong reboots. I did see the what was it, the 2014 Godzilla, which I was like, well, I mean, it's okay, I guess, but it's like the super gritty modern reinterpretation, like everything else. I was like, well, it's just like they just applied the modern paintbrush to Godzilla, but it was okay, I guess. Excuse me. And then when they finally did Kong Skull Island, it's like, well, they just turned it into like a monsters and horror movie and stuff. And I'm like, to me, that's not what Kong is about. And I know there's such a huge fan base for Godzilla films across the world. I've only really seen the original, never really gotten into the whole, uh, uh, realm of Godzilla. And I know there's so many different ones. Uh, but so, and I've meant to, but it seems to me like the modern attempt at doing, big, CG monster movies, at least at Warner Brothers, they're still under the. I mean, it's not involved with Christopher Nolan, but still has that feel, just like the DCU realm of films had him executive producing for a while, and it still has that modern, gritty mindset. Except now you just have CG monsters fighting. So I'm like, that really doesn't seem to me what these films were originally about. So I haven't really paid it much attention, and I'm just like, yeah, it's really not for me. I wish more people would see the original, 1954 Gojira, or especially the 33 King Kong, which is so important, and it's amazing to me that so many people haven't seen it in this day and age, because when you do see the original Kong, it's about a lot more than a giant gorilla, fighting dinosaurs and climbing the Empire State Building. Um, so I can understand you on that, being underwhelmed and disappointed. Oh, Elvin's talking about having database guides back in the 90s when he started collecting laser. Yeah, I've read some, and some people will sometimes like post pictures on Facebook of like old ones they find, or like scans of stuff. I would love to get old Video Watchdog articles, but at least they have a website. I loved reading their in-depth stuff, and then I love scouring through the widescreen review. If you can navigate through their website, you can find some of their old Laserdisc reviews buried in there, but they usually cut off at the end, so you have to go then track down the old magazine, which would be great, but that's expensive and time-consuming and stuff. But yeah, it's also a signal of a time that no longer exists. It's just like having the old video game guides where you get the whole booklet, or no, sorry, the whole book for going through and tips and tricks and things. But we have the internet now, which everything's on the internet. So why would you need old printed materials? Okay, let's see. Rewatched Batman animated series and Batman Beyond, and trying to hold out on Superman in case of a Blu-ray. I did that too for a good while, and then I finally was just like, uh, I never owned Superman the animated series on disc, and I saw most of it when I was a kid growing up, but I never got to see the whole thing. And I never even thought we'd see Blu-ray for any of this stuff, because this was a couple years ago. So I finally broke down and got the Superman DVDs, because they came out with a slim complete series box, and one of those. multi-disc eco sets, and you can get it for pretty cheap, or you can get the original volumes, which there were three, and they have the same packaging as Batman did. And I really like that packaging, so I probably should have gone ahead and got that, but I got the complete one for cheap. The only trouble is with that one, they used double-sided discs for a lot of them. So if you buy a used copy, you gotta make sure you don't get one that's scratched up. Um, but yeah, I don't know if Superman's going to be anytime soon. So if you really want to watch it, the DVD is pretty cheap. I think it can go on sale for like 25 or less for the whole series, and then you can get copies on eBay for like less than that. So it's not expensive at all. And I bought the Batman Beyonds when they came out, so I think that's probably, if they do Blu-ray next, it's probably going to be Batman Beyond or Superman. But I'd say Batman Beyond first because there's a lot of interest in that, and there's been a lot of talk. Like for years, they've wanted to do it as a movie, and now it seems like there's a big vocal fan base online. And then a lot of kids who grew up with the show are now older and very vocal about it, um, which I didn't even realize for the longest time. It was pretty interesting all of a sudden to see they're doing new Batman Beyond comics, and you can actually get a Batman Beyond T-shirt. And I'm like, wait, people like this show now? Like, this is weird. So yeah, if you can hold out, the DVDs are good, and they're pretty cheap now. Unfortunately, Justice League is the one that keeps eluding me. I want to get the I have the unlimited Blu-ray, but I'd like to get the Blu-ray for the first two seasons. But they still have like the $50 retail price on them, so they still go for a lot of money. And I'd like to get the Blu-ray because I never got it on DVD, but I don't want to just get DVD because the Blu-ray is too expensive. And I have the unlimited series on Blu-ray, which came out from Warner Archive, and I actually got that for on one of their sales. So it was only like 11 bucks. Um, so I don't want to pay $50 for the first two seasons. But those were the first ones to be done on Blu-ray. Do you think we'll ever get another classic era DCAU movie in the same universe as the show? Well, they did do that recent Batman and Harley Quinn direct-to-video and the DCU video series, and it's got some of the animated series design, and it's supposed to be in the same realm. I know it's kind of got mixed reviews, but that's like the one they've done that's supposed to be in the same timeline. Before that, they did the Mystery of the Batwoman direct to video back like in, I think it was like 2003 or something, and it was basically like a extended two-parter of the New Adventures of Batman when they had the redesign. I mean, it was okay, but that was that. There's that one, and then there's the new Batman Harley Quinn one. So those are the two instances that are supposed to be in the realm of the original storyline from the animated series. And they've now basically said that Batman Beyond is like the end of that timeline. So you could also sort of include that, and then Superman as the side one because they're in the same universe. But yeah, I still need to see that Batman Harley Quinn. I know I got mixed reviews, and most of those I'm not really into because they're just like 80-minute adaptations of a famous comic, and like the Killing Joke one was awful. Like the first half of that was just, they should have never released that. But and then some of them have been good. The 66 revival ones, the Return of the Cape Crusaders and Batman versus Two-Face, where they actually got Adam West and Burt Ward back, especially Return of the Cape Crusaders. That's got a lot of wit to it. So if you haven't seen those, I definitely recommend those. But yeah, so far it just seems like it's those two, Mystery of the Batwoman and Batman. I think it's Batman and Harley Quinn, not versus, but yeah, those are the two that are supposed to officially be part of the animated series realm. But they do miss Paul Dini. I don't think he's done any specific of those, and he would definitely be key. It'd be really great if they actually were able to get the whole old gang back together. Like that would just make everybody lose their minds. I don't know how feasible that would be, but I do enjoy when Paul and some of the other guys pop up on like online interviews or different things. And I'm not really on Twitter. I do have an account, but I will admit one of the first things I found was his Twitter, so I followed it. So I've only been on Twitter like 2 or 3 times, but one of like the 2 or 3 things I followed was Paul Dini. So um, yeah, that would be really cool. Like if they were to do something, they should just get the whole old gang back together and just go for broke. Um, Let's see. Oh, Melinda's talking about, oh yeah, still got your old copies of Widescreen Review. Yeah, love getting in the mail to see what the see what Trek Generations was about. Yeah, I there were always so many magazines I wanted to get as a kid because that was really the big era of getting the magazines in the mail in the 80s and 90s. But I could never afford things. About the only thing I got in the mail was I was in the subscribed to Star Wars Insider for a couple of years, so it was fun getting those around the time of the special edition hype, and then all of the early news about the prequels and on-set photos. And it was a cool time to be a Star Wars fan because the everything was starting to wrap up and everybody was excited about it again, because there was that really big gap roughly from the end of 83 after Jedi came out, really until the new toys came out in like 95, 96, right before the special editions. So it was really cool going to the mail and being able to get those out. And of course, I was a kid at the time, so I didn't know that there were really a whole lot of other magazines and then video magazines specifically, because that would have blew my mind. Because I loved finding out about video releases when I was a kid. And it was just like I would just see stuff in the store, and that's the only way you knew. You saw a commercial, or you saw the little flyers, or they had the little paper inserts advertising other titles, and you're just like, wow. And then you're like, no store carries these. I could just stare at this picture instead. Um, but the only other thing I ever got in the mail as a kid was the old Movies Unlimited catalog for mail order. And I loved flipping through that because I would recognize all these titles I'd read about in library books, and films I had seen part of on TV or seen in the old TV guide portion of the weekly newspaper and stuff. And they would say, a particular film title would have like 4 stars, and it'd be from like 1945, and it would list the actors and like a single sentence describing the plot, and it sounded fantastic. And I'm like, when can I ever see this? And I could never afford anything in Movies Unlimited, but I loved getting the catalog. It's also interesting because it was almost all VHS. I remember there were a couple mentions of Laserdisc in there, and then eventually the catalog switched over to DVD. I think they got bought out. I don't think they're around anymore, but they were the big mail order movie catalog. Oh yeah, yeah. Melinda's talking about the Hammer lasers having good transfers. Yeah, because most of those were, at least the main ones, they were the what was the Elite brand. So they're not quite Roan discs, but they all have like those matching covers, and they're really great. And then they all got ported to DVD and came out under Anchor Bay and the Hammer collection, which I got a couple of those because those were the first copies I was really buying when the DVDs were out, and then they all went out of print, and that's what started me trying to track down all the various hammers that I was missing and trying to see. And there's still a good number that I've actually not seen yet, which is still killing me because I made so many different ones. But at least it's really cool that the main ones are pretty well represented now. There's still a couple that have dodgy transfers or DNR ones. And at least most of the main ones are getting good treatment now. Unfortunately, we're still stuck in limbo with Curse of Frankenstein, and the Warner Archive Horror Ejaculate is a lot better in ways, but it's not a new transfer and it's got its own problems. So we're still in limbo on those two. But yeah, I'd love to pick up more of the Hammer lasers. But being horror films, classic horror films, they usually elude me with those higher price tags and stuff. Oh man, I'd love to pick up more of those. I always search on eBay and look around, but I've gotten a couple. But and even the Universal ones they did, even though they were just usual cheap Universal discs, the transfers are great. Um, yeah, I'd love to pick up more of those. Probably need to. I'm slacking on that. Let's see. Say yeah, I'm trying to get it going and doing it just a full on every single week. Um, Usually Tuesday nights. That's what I'm shooting for. Is every Tuesday. Let's see. Mentor says Dark Phoenix is worth it just for Fassbender. Okay. Yeah, I think I might just out of curiosity. There was that really great scene in Apocalypse out of nowhere where, it's like, what's Magneto been up to? Oh, he's got a family now, and well, I wonder how this is going to turn out. Answer, not well, and it's ultra dramatic, and it's like out of a completely different movie, and it's super emotional and everything, and it's like, this is a great little scene. It feels like it's from a completely different movie, but now I feel like my ticket was worth it because that was pretty good. So yeah, I think I might see Dark Phoenix now just out of sheer curiosity. Let's see. I was talking about buying the old guides back in the store back in the day. Yeah, that would have been really cool. I never really had any stores around, like magazines and video materials specifically about video. The closest would be like back when we still had Media Play. They did have laser discs because I do remember them being, in the locked glass cases or on the shelf with the big price tags. But they had a magazine section, but there wasn't like anything specific about, like video. Because you would think it would have been in like the video section and stuff. But yeah, that would have been really cool. Of course, I was super young at the time, so I wouldn't have realized what I was actually looking at was something different than just like a promotional flyer or something. Let's see. Oh, Metro's picked up the Batman Superman movie and Mask of the Phantasm on laser. Yeah, they are great transfers. I've never gotten the Batman Superman alone because I know the Laserdisc is pretty rare. I have seen the DVD, and of course, it's not really a separate movie. It's just a combination of episodes from. Can't remember if they all aired as Superman the Animated Series or if they were all on the fourth season of Batman because they would run those together. But it's basically, I think it's 3 episodes put together. Um, but yeah, I mean the transfer on that's got to be great. Makes you think what Batman and Superman would have looked like on Laserdisc had they just made show releases on Laserdisc back in the day. Mask of the Phantasm, though, it is a great transfer. I love the warmth of the color in that master, and of course that's what we had for years. It's what I grew up with, and the new Warner Archive Blu-ray, which is also in the animated series box set, is really eye-opening because it's going back to master material. It doesn't have that baked-in color warmth to it that we're all so used to. And you can also watch it in 133, which doesn't have the 185 matting. That's a little tight in some shots, but I'm so used to the 185 version that I still watch that. My first copy was on tape, and that was 133, and then I got the DVD widescreen, and I watched that for years. And then I got the Laserdisc, which I actually like the Laserdisc better than the old DVD. It's a bit smoother. It feels, it I hate to say it feels more filmic, but it seems to play better. There's not any harsh softness, but the audio is outstanding. It's a nice Dolby surround release for the time period. It's not like aggressive or big or anything, but it has a nice low into it, nice warmth. And I compared it to the Blu-ray, and although the Blu-ray has a great new lossless track, it's like, honestly, I think they may have gone back to like a master source, and a lot of the dialogue is a tiny bit harsher. So I actually prefer the Laserdisc PCM on Phantasm, simply because it's a little bit warmer, and I'm used to it, and it sounds great. So I don't know if they used the print master for that because it had the limited theatrical run, but if I put the two side by side, I think the Warner Archive Blu-ray is outstanding, and I think everybody should pick up one, especially since it comes basically for free with the animated series and the box set. But I really still like the Laserdisc, and I think the audio on the Laserdisc is actually a little bit better. So I am totally with you on that. Let's see. Strictly Sega is asking for any hidden gem comedies. Ooh, that is a good one. And then Melinda points out 123, which is one of the great underrated Billy Wilder films. It's from 1961, if I'm remembering the year correctly. So it's After Some Like It Hot in the Apartment. It's the one of the actually no, I think it is the penultimate film Jimmy Cagney was in. And if you know Jimmy Cagney at all, I mean, he could keep up a really fast pace of speech. And 123 is so fast moving that even Cagney you know, he found it kind of exhausting trying to make it through the production of that film because it was so fast and so biting. So absolutely, that Billy Wilder has so many different films that are completely underrated, but that one especially. There's a nice Blu-ray out there, and I think it just came out in I think one of the labels in the UK. I think maybe Masters of Cinema did their version, so it's out in the UK as well. So there's that. Absolutely. Then also, and I don't know if how many you may have seen of the classic screwball comedies. Those are probably my favorite. Uh, you know, particularly the ones with you know, Cary Grant, like The Awful Truth and His Girl Friday, or Bringing Up Baby, or another that has Katie Hepburn as well as Holiday. That's a favorite of mine. And then of course, the Philadelphia Story is the easiest one to recommend because that has something for everybody. But I don't know how many of the classic screwball comedies or how far you go into that. The other one I would say, because I find it's very, very unknown and underrated these days, are all of the classic Ernst Lubitsch films, which are extremely important and basically are, you know, he was known for his, they call it the Lubitsch touch. They're extremely sophisticated and the way they blend humor with real life drama. So they have a gravitas, but they're also bitingly funny in sort of an indirect way. Um, Films like especially The Shop Around the Corner, which is just a phenomenal masterpiece, or Trouble in Paradise, or you know, I could just keep going. But those are much more on the if you were making like a food comparison, they're like the rich dessert of comedy, I guess. And he was a huge influence on Billy Wilder, who was almost like a disciple of his when before Lubitsch died at an untimely age. So you can see a lot of similarities in what Billy Wilder went and did later on. So yeah, that would be a couple of recommendations. Um, Another one that jumps to mind simply because I love it so much is because I'm such a noir geek. I love what Steve Martin and Carl Reiner did on Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid. It's my favorite Steve Martin film, and it's the one where it's set in the 40s and he plays a total cliche gumshoe private eye, and it's interwoven with clips from classic film noirs with the classic stars. But instead of just redoing those sequences, they literally take them and interweave them in a brilliant way to make a new story, and sometimes just playing them for full out comedic effect, but also paying respect to, you know, the classic genre and the classic stars and classic Hollywood in general. And I love that picture. It's one of those that I could just see 1,000 times and I wish was longer. And the editing job back on that, because they were still in the analog realm, must have been crazy, just for getting all the licenses and then, you know, physically cutting everything in and making the dupes and interweaving it in just the right way to get the edit right and then match the lighting. So on a technical level, it's also really impressive. And of course, the whole film is shot in black and white, so that also gets the thumbs up from me. So that is a fantastic film for, you know, classic Hollywood nerds, and it's got some really funny moments and is easily my favorite thing Steve Martin has ever done. I could talk about that film forever. Let's see, catching up. Metro picked up a lot from favorite seller. Got Know What You Did Last Summer sealed, and okay. I don't know if that's rare or anything, but you know, that is getting on later in the 90s, so I'm sure the transfer is going to be great. Oh, Video Connoisseur's in. Hey man, how are you? Oh, got in your MGM horror box set. Yeah. Oh man, yeah, it is a great set. Um, I was shooting some for my next video, and I was talking about it for a minute, and I just hold it in my hands again. It's just a fantastic box, you know. And anytime you pick up a laser disc and you can just feel the box is sturdy and solid, and it's just like it feels so nice in your hands. And I love those films because they're really interesting and out there, and you know, you can definitely tell why exactly they aren't, with the others because they're kind of weird, kind of oddball. So it's like they fit together in a weird way. And I'm just super excited to have Bad Love on Laserdisc because to me that's like the lost great classic 30s horror because nobody talks about it, and it could easily, you could put it in a box set with the classic Universal horrors and it fits right in. I mean, it is just an incredible piece of work. And then The Devil Doll, like I said before, is just a weird film. You cannot stop watching that. It's got funny comedy bits. It's got it's like the whole use of the old lady guys as a direct nod to Todd Browning's The Unholy Three, and he's directing this. And then it's got the whole sci-fi element, and it's got scenes that make you think of Incredible Shrinking Man, and it's super creepy, and it's also like emotional because it's an MGM film. So of course it's got that whole family emotional subplot. So yeah, it's a strange beast, but it's so cool that they put all these together in that set because it's like they were trying to like get these more obscure titles out that people really loved to be like, okay, we know you guys like this stuff, so we put it together for you in a nice box. Um, so yeah, glad you got that. Yeah, it's not easy to find, and usually when you stumble across one, it's got a pretty good price tag on it. Let's see. Let's see. Metro's recommending The Mask and Good Morning Vietnam. Yeah, yeah. Good Morning Vietnam is an interesting film. Every time I go back and rewatch it, I forget how good it is. Because yeah, it's one of those that really blends in the comedy and makes it inherent to the scenario. Um, I guess the closest anything ever came to that was during the Vietnam section of Full Metal Jacket when they're going through when they're in the army newspaper office and they're basically being told they have to act like everything's great and write all these puff pieces. That's probably my favorite part of the whole film. Like that could have been the whole movie. Make it like Dr. Strangelove goes to Vietnam. But in terms of finding the inherent humor and the madness of war, I think that's also like the core tenet of Good Morning Vietnam. That is, gosh, I haven't seen that in a good long time. I need to get a copy of that. There's a good widescreen reissue of it on Laserdisc, and I think people have said the Blu-rays like in the Best Buy bin, so I should check that out. I don't think I have a copy actually. That bugs me now. It's gonna go on the list. Um, let's see. Oh, Connoisseur, you got the early Soviet cinema box. Ooh, I've, I've heard of one. I can't remember if it was like maybe from Image or somebody. Because there's also like a early D.W. Griffith box set, and a lot of those kind of sometimes they dovetail with what Kino did on DVD or some of the other labels and like the early silent masterworks. But then there's a number of laser boxes, but I don't know. I think I've seen it on the database, but I can't remember who did it or what's in it. But I would guess it's probably a number of Eisenstein films, like October and Strike and some of the other famous ones. There's actually a lot more early Soviet films than most people would realize. I've seen even some museum shows that talked about a number of them. They did all kinds of stuff because basically you had the Soviets and you had the Germans leading the way in the era of silent films, and Hollywood was still an up and coming thing, and eventually they got the more of the technical know-how. But what happened, of course, in the interim to cause the shift from Russian films and German films was unfortunately war, and that set back so many different things in so many different ways. And a lot of the key creative people wound up, especially in Germany, immigrating to the United States. And it became so large that that's what led to the foundation of different genres, and people had I can't remember. There's like a specific name for the sheer influx of essentially German and Jewish refugees, causing the shift in the various art forms, and then because of that, Hollywood became the dominant force. So that's why you can look at silent Russian films and see they're doing science fiction epics like what is it? Alita, Queen of Mars is a science fiction film, a silent film from I think it's from the mid 20s, and it kind of is. I mean, it's not like Robinson Crusoe on Mars, but you have a whole science fiction epic set on Mars with, a Martian army and a Martian queen and everything. And it's like, there's not anything like that in American Silence at the time period. So, yeah, they were a bit ahead of their time with that one. I'll have to look that up. I'm curious what all's in it. Uh, let's see. Okay, yeah, Strictly likes A Man with Two Brains and L.A. Story. Oh gosh, I haven't seen L.A. Story in years. I've got a DVD copy. I should rewatch that. Gosh, I need to rewatch all the early Steve Martin stuff, and then I did like some of his later stuff, like some of the darker, more indie films. So I think I should just rewatch all of them and then pick up on the ones that I've missed out on. I'd like to pick up the Warner Archive Man with Two Brains. That looks pretty good. I meant to pick it up, but of course there's too many discs, too little money. So next time they do one of their sales, I'd like to pick that up because I would have gotten the DVD, but it was one of those where it's just pan and scan only, and the Warner Archive disc is of course widescreen. Uh, and yeah, so okay, cool. You like Dead Man, yeah. And oh gosh, Pennies from Heaven, yeah, that's an interesting one. I know that was not a big financial hit back in the day, but I like the idea of it. It was pretty bold to do that at the time period for, like a dark depression era movie. It's also kind of a musical. Um, oh yeah, we all know Pink Panther 2, A Cheaper by the Dozen too. Steve Martin's best work. Oh God, oh God. I refuse to ever see the modern Pink Panthers. I don't want to know. I saw part of the first one, and I'm like, oh God, no, no, I'm not doing this. I had my how some people did on Ghostbusters, the modern remake. I was doing that back on Pink Panther in 2006. I was like, no, I refuse. I'm not doing it. I get it. That's fine. I understand you want to do something with the IP. MGM wants money, but no, you should just leave it alone. Like they twisted Blake Edwards' arm and they got him to do the stuff in the 80s, and I've seen that, and no. I've seen Curse of the Pink Panther. I've seen Son of the Pink Panther. Like we know where this can go. Let's just leave it alone. And then they did the second one. Dear God. So, oh man, yeah. I try to forget about this. Oh gosh, Cheaper by the Dozen too. I never saw that. I guess I dodged a bullet on that one. But yeah, whenever he pops up in like one of those dumb things, and like especially in the past couple years, it's just like, remember when Steve Martin used to make like biting comedies, or like I think probably the last good Steve Martin movie is probably Bowfinger. And that's like almost 20 years old now. It's kind of scary because that was a Frank Oz movie, and it's kind of a Hollywood satire, and it's got some great industry in jokes in there and some great performances. And Steve Martin's character is basically like a loving take almost on Roger Corman, basically, like the king of low budget, ultra low budget B movies nobody's ever seen, in terms of that character he's playing. But yeah, I think that's probably the last really good like comedy he did. And then some of the darker, more adult films. Like I think, what was it? I remember. I think it was Novocaine, the one where he plays the dentist, and it's sort of like a quirky indie modern 2000s noir of all things. That was pretty interesting, and so was Chop Girl, which was based on his book because he's actually a pretty good writer. But anyway, let's see, catch up here. Oh, Laserman's here. Hey, man. Speaking of hard to find, anyone have the PAL Pioneer test disc? Let me know. Wow. Yeah, I bet that's not easy to find. No, Doctor Strangelove Goes to Vietnam, the great Netflix series. I know, right? Yeah, they managed to survive the Doomsday Machine in the new ending, and then Strangelove just wheels himself over to Vietnam, and he's the secret advisor. Gosh, that would be just mad. Uh, I totally could picture Peter Sellers sitting in a wheelchair in like one of the background scenes of Full Metal Jacket. It's just like, gosh, what if? And I could just picture everybody on the set, even Kubrick, just falling over laughing. Gosh, that would be great. That is just like a great what if. And that's the reason why we do live streams. We come up with totally bonkers ideas after 2 hours. Let's see. Okay, okay, talking about the Soviet box, it's got okay, Man with the Movie Camera. Yeah, I should have figured that's like the one of the iconic ones along with Potemkin. Okay, Einstein Strike, and then Devchenko's Earth, and okay, got some Potemkin, and oh, Fall of the Romanov Dynasty. Okay, I know I've read about that one. I've seen a number of them, and I've seen like a bunch of clips of others and like documentaries and films about the silent era. So sometimes I'm watching one that I've never heard of, and all of a sudden I see a chunk that I'm like, wait, I've seen this before somewhere, or I've read of the title somewhere. So um, I still need to see more of them, but there's so many. But yeah, the early German and Soviet silent cinema is so unquestionably important, and at least people might know of. German silent cinema because of Ufa and Fritz Lang and Murnau and the German Expressionism, and then things like Metropolis because those are the most famous silent films. But they usually have no idea about Russian silent cinema outside of Man with the Movie Camera or Potemkin and Eisenstein. Let's see. Okay, yeah, Video Connoisseur's gonna rip into that set when it comes in. Yeah, those, I'm so happy that even at that point in video history, there were at least labels trying to get the important early works out there and seen. Because for me, my first attempt at seeing those was on VHS, and because they're technically public domain, everybody and their brother made VHS public domain tapes of whatever they could, and then they act like, oh, it's a great release, and it's like Eisenstein's Battleship Potemkin, and I'm like, wow, I can finally see this. And I had to gosh, I didn't get it mail order, but I had to actually do like it was a mail rental thing, if anybody remembers that, where you actually rented a tape and it had to be mailed to you. It wasn't even in the special order section of the video store. And it was the only tape I ever did like this, and what showed up was a bad public domain tape, and the tape was busted inside. So that was the first time I had to learn how to, specifically pop open the top of the tape caddy, and then try to, get it back on the wheel hubs and everything. And then I was able to watch most of it through tons of static and stuff. And then come to find out it didn't have the color tinting and it was missing chunks, but it was like, finally, I saw Battleship Potemkin, or at least part of it. And then there were some that I rented from the video store, and it was the same thing, public domain tapes and, all kinds of different print versions. And then I bought so many of the early public domain DVDs because you'd see them in the grocery store for $1, and you'd be like in a Kroger, and it'd be like a little thing of movies, and it would be like a couple modern DVDs of stuff that you didn't care about, like stuff from the past year or two, and then next it would be a box uh, of $2 DVDs, and you pull one out, and it's like Frank Capra's Meet John Doe, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and Battleship Potemkin and Nosferatu, and I'm like, this is the greatest thing ever. Horrible, I mean, every once in a while there's one that's actually a pretty good transfer, but all these terrible public domain DVDs was like an explosion in the early 2000s, and just labels you'd never heard of. They all had the stinky plastic cheap cases, with the plastic that's so cheap it literally has that god awful stinky smell. And but then a lot of those films still haven't made it out of public domain land. So that was the first way I got to see a lot of things. So that thankfully there's sites like Silent Era that has the nice home video write-ups for silent films, where they try to talk about, does it have color tinting? What score does it have? They give it a score 1 out of 10, So that is a godsend for trying to find, good versions of silent films. But of course, I didn't know or have access to that back then. So I had a ton of those crappy public domain tapes and DVDs, and then had to hope I could, get rid of them eventually by, trading them into stores for like pennies, or just giving them away to people and just saying, hey, the quality on this is not good, but it's a public domain tape of such and such. You should see it, even though it's not a good transfer. Just take it. I can't stand it anymore. Um, let's see. Oh, Metro's looking for the Scooby-Doo Hanna-Barbera personal favorites disc. If anybody has one, I'll give you an arm and a leg. Yeah, those things are rare. All the Scooby discs are. I've had them on my wish list for years, just in the case that I ever find one. Um, I did find the personal favorites Yogi Bear disc recently in the local shop. They had a couple animation discs, and I was just flipping through, and I picked up one of the Rocky and Bullwinkles, and then there was the Yogi one, and I'm like, "Holy crap, that's one of the personal favorites discs! Wow!" And then I'm like, "Please tell me Scooby's next. Please tell me Scooby's next. Please tell me." And I flip, and I'm like, "Oh, dang it! That was the only other animated title." Well, one can hope. So, yeah, they're just like super, super rare, and they go for a good dollar amount. Simply, I think, partly because of the scarcity and the fact that it's Scooby Doo. And I'm amazed they only did like the three, or what is it? Is it four or five Scooby titles that are on Laserdisc? But I guess that's partly because Warner Brothers wasn't really big on Laserdisc for, what they viewed as the children's animation division, and that was all straight to VHS. And of course, most of those were just, compilations of episodes and stuff. Um, I've wanted to pick up more of the DVDs, but I've always held off because they're pretty old DVDs, and they should be pretty cheap, and because they're Scooby Doo and they think kids will, or parents can be forced into buying for more money. And also, I've hoped they do more Blu-rays, and now that